All right, so we are doing Tanya chapter 10. We started last week, the beginning, talking about the incomplete tzaddik. The We said that there's two types of tzaddik. There's the complete tzaddik and the incomplete tzaddik. And we're in order to better understand the two levels. Um, the Alter Rebbe is now going to go talk about the complete tzaddik, and then he's going to go back to the incomplete tzaddik. So there's a little bit of back and forth, um, because we have to compare and contrast the two very similar and very lofty levels, um, but yet um, they're nuanced in the degree to which they have successfully banished evil from within themselves. So again, we're up to the words Ubera Inyan, which in English is the explanation of the matter is as follows. We won't be following the English text verbatim, but it'll give you a little bit of an idea of where we're holding and what's going on. So the Alter Rebbe continues Ubera Inyan to further explain the core of what is the incomplete tzaddik. That on the one hand, the incomplete tzaddik doesn't feel any desire towards material concerns, towards worldly things. But on the other hand, there still is some remnants of the evil, which is why his animal soul has still not become completely good. As we gave the analogy last week, there's still more noise in a football stadium playing football than if they were completing the shas in that same stadium with the same amount of people, right? Of course, completing the shas or any other Torah celebration would be much more meaningful and worthy to attend. But in terms of the atmosphere and the excitement level in the room, a football game certainly outplays the Siyum HaShas or whatever it might be. But the goal is to make our godly soul have the same animation, the same excitement that the animals that the animal soul should have the same excitement towards holy things as it had towards unholy things. So until it reaches that point, we're still saying that the animal soul is incomplete in its banishment and its transformation to good. Because we said that it's it's a black and white situation. Either your animal soul has been completely converted to godliness, meaning it's passionate and it's desirous, it's excited about godly things, and if it isn't, that excitement for worldly things has not totally been gotten rid of. So the Alter Rebbe continues, because let's look at now the complete tzaddik, the one who the good inside of him was completely transformed to good, which means his godly soul has completely been victorious in the battle within the body, the battle against the animal soul, meaning it successfully transformed the evil within the animal soul into good, to the point that the animal soul is now excited and screaming at the top of his lungs, as he would have by a football game. Now he's doing that when he's studying Talmud or learning Tanya, because he's been completely transformed. So it's the same passion, it's the same excitement, it's the same animalistic type of wildness, but now it's completely and exclusively for holiness. And that's why the complete tzaddik is called a tzaddik whom good is to him. Because the evil within him has been completely converted to good, he is called a tzaddik which good is to him. Meaning only good is to him. He possesses good exclusively. Because even the animal soul, which was once drawn towards other things, is now exclusively drawn towards holiness. So now he has actually two souls working for godliness. He has his godly soul, working for godliness, and now his animal soul is also on board and has joined the team of godliness. Now, how do you achieve such a transformation? So the Alter Rebbe explains, "Hu al yedei hasaras habegadim atzayim legamri mehara." It's by removing the soiled garments completely from evil. So as long as a person has not removed the quote unquote, he's using a metaphor of soiled garments from the evil, which, as we said in chapter 9, soiled garments is a reference to the indulgence in worldly affairs, the garments being our thoughts, speech, and deed. And when our thoughts or our speech or our deeds are immersed in worldly affairs, it's like putting your clothes in the soil. So what this means is the very core of the animal soul is the very power to desire. So what does it mean when we say soiled garments? It means that the animal soul has desired worldly things. And what the Tzaddik Gamor accomplishes is that he completely removes this power of desire from worldly affairs. Dahainu, the Alter Rebbe explains, this means limais ma'id b'tanuge elam haza, to be completely disgusted with pleasures of this world. It's like, what? Relaxing on a beach? Ugh! Ice cream? Filthy! I would never touch such a thing. To ever try to indulge in these things in a human way, in just like the way normal human beings do. And for those who were at the class last night, human in the derogatory sense, in the sense of like, what do you expect? He's only human, right? Humans eat ice cream and enjoy it. But the Tzaddik Gamor cannot enjoy it. In fact, he's disgusted by any such enjoyment. What am I going to sit here and indulge the pleasures of my body and not serve God? He sees it as a contradiction. He sees eating ice cream or enjoying a suntan, obviously in a modest manner. Even that is disgusting. Why? Because what am I doing here? I should be serving God right now. So what we mean when we say to remove the soiled garments, it's not just that the tzaddik does not desire those worldly matters, but it's so disgusting to him that he runs away from it. The truth of the matter is that when I use the word soiled garments, we're not. I'm using a polite term, but just for the sake of clarity, begadim tzayim in Hebrew literally means pooped garments. Okay? Pardon the expression, but that's literally what it means. So what do you do when you encounter pooped garments? You run away from it. It's disgusting. You're repulsed by it. So for the tzaddik gamor, for the complete tzaddik, he removed those garments that have poop on them. Because, I mean, who wants to be around that? It's disgusting. It has a foul smell. It's not pleasurable. You know, I think the best analogy that we could have, for regular human beings like ourselves, who are not, like myself, I should say, who's not a tzaddik gamor, is if you've ever watched a hypnosis show where they take somebody, they put them under the hypnosis spell, and they just tell them all sorts of mishigas, and they believe it. They give them an onion, and they say, eat this onion, it tastes like an apple, right? Then they chew through the onion like they're eating an apple, right? Maybe they even leave the core unbit. But similarly, they can do the same thing and give them a bar of chocolate, Skittles, or I don't know what's it called, the Hershey's bar of chocolate, and as they are eating it, say, "What are you doing there? You're eating poop." And you see the person reacts like, "Oh my gosh!" It's like this light bulb goes off in his head and says, "How could I be doing this? It's disgusting, right?" So you see, our minds could sometimes play these tricks on us where an apple could be an onion, and a chocolate, or an onion could be an apple, a chocolate bar could be a log of you know what. And that's how the tzaddik views all sorts of pleasures in this world. It's like, oh my gosh, ooh, disgusting. I don't want to even go near such a thing. Again, that doesn't mean that the tzaddik can't eat food, but any element of enjoyment in the food is totally repugnant and disgusting to the tzaddik. So that means even things that are 100% permissible, even eating pasta, kosher pasta, which, it has carbs, it has some nutrients that you need, right? But he cannot stomach the idea, pardon the pun, he cannot stomach the idea of, I'm enjoying this. Because anything that's not exclusively for God, it's just, how could I get involved in that? That's a contradiction to my life's goal, to my focus on serving God. So granted, if the pasta helps him get stronger and keeps him alive in order to be able to serve God, okay, so that's his focus. His focus is, let me get to the next mitzvah. Part of that is I need to eat, so I'm going to eat. It's part of my mission here on this world. But any semblance of pleasure or enjoyment, it's like soiled garments. Now, why is he so repulsed by that? What's so bad about enjoying things? So he says, why? Because they are drawn and they're nurtured from the klipa and the sitra achra. The fact that they are enjoyable, that the energy of enjoyment within them is a contrary to God energy. Of course, it's, as explained elsewhere, everything, even the Sitra Achra is created by God. Even the opposition to God was created by God. But still, it's playing on the team of the opposition. Right? Again, by way of analogy, because everything comes back to hockey. Before the Montreal Canadiens go up against the Philadelphia Flyers tonight, they're going to practice in their own side rink. And they're going to have their own goalies on both ends of the rink, and they're going to have their own players playing against each other, but this one's on the red team and this one's on the white team, and they have to fight each other, right? Well, not literally fight. Sometimes that happens, but they have to oppose each other. That is their job, right? Similarly, the Sitra Achra, the other side as it's called, is an entity that God created that said, your job is to oppose everything godly. That's your job. That's your assignment. And where does the energy of excitement and indulgence and enjoyment of physical worldly affairs come from? It comes from that Sitra Achra, from that energy of opposing godliness. So anything that's not exclusively for the purpose of serving God, even though it's completely permissible, it's kosher ice cream, it's a private beach, there's nobody else there when you're enjoying the sun, still, if it's not exclusively for serving God, then it's covering over God. So when a person indulges or even entertains for a moment the thought process, oh, I'm enjoying this, even if it's something completely kosher and permissible, he is connecting himself to the other side, to the side that's opposing godliness. And anything that is from the other side, says the Alter Rebbe, the complete tzaddik looks at that with utter disgust and hatred. Due to his own great love to Hashem and His holiness, with a intense love, with a delightful love, and the additional cherishing that he has towards God that we mentioned in chapter 9, because he's experiencing that love to God, anything that's covering over God, it's like, oh, get out of the way, right? You ever are, you're in the bleachers, you're watching a concert, you're watching a show, whatever it might be, and there's somebody who's standing up in front of you, in the row in front of you, blocking your eyesight. You're like, you are the enemy. You are against my reason for being here. I'm here to watch a concert. I'm here to watch a show, and here you are standing right in front of my face. Sit down already, right? So the Sitra Achra is distracting and getting in the way of us seeing and appreciating godliness. They're saying, oh, you want to eat pasta in order to daven later? You want to eat pasta so you can learn Torah with greater energy? Oh, let me show some fun and delight over here. Let me show you the taste of the pasta, how delightful it is. That's a distraction. That's getting in my face. That's getting in my way of my focus. So since the tzaddik gamor, since the complete tzaddik enjoys God with an intense love, with a boundless love, anything that gets in the way is completely hated. It's an unlimited hatred. So, so in other words, the tzaddik gamor doesn't have to study the delights of this world to understand that it's potentially hazardous. But it's an automatic result and an outgrowth of his love for God. Because he's so attached to God and he's so focused on God, anything that is ungodly and isn't part of the show, to use the metaphor, is a distraction of the show. And it's getting in the way. It's blocking his vision from the show. And he's like, get out of my way. You taste good? I don't want to taste. I don't want to think about that. I just want to think about what I'm doing with this food. And that is serving God. Now, why does the love for God equal hatred for anything else, for the Sitra Achra? So the Alter Rebbe explains, Ki heim zeh le'umah zeh, because holiness and klipa are two things that are opposite one another. So somebody who truly loves God and just wants to get close to God, and indeed is attached to godliness with his entire heart, automatically that person is going to feel a hatred to anything that is against God, namely klipa, sitra achra, because they are opposing his love of God. So, just to contrast that with worldly love or worldly delight, it's completely fathomable that when we're talking about worldly pleasures, that a person can enjoy two things at the same time. Two things that are very, very different, right? A person can enjoy good music, which is a bit more of a the Rebbe Rashab in Kuntra Samayan, in the what's called the Overcoming Folly book. He writes over there that there's different levels of human pleasure. There's a very animalistic pleasure, which is like good food. Then there's a higher, more refined level of pleasure, which is delight of music. And then there's the even higher pleasure of delight in intellect, ideas. What's that? Delight in ideas is and studying. That's an even more elevated and refined level of delight and pleasure. So a person can actually enjoy these different ranks and levels of pleasure simultaneously, right? You could be eating in a restaurant, having a good hamburger, beef burger, I should clarify, and at the same time, you're also listening to classical music, and you're enjoying the music, and you're enjoying the burger. And those are very different types of pleasure. One's giving pleasure to your tongue. One's giving pleasure to I don't even know where are the pleasure centers in the brain for music, whatever it might be. But it's not a contradiction. But that only works if those two pleasures are not contradictory to each other. But but when we're talking about holiness and forces that oppose godliness, it's kind of like fire and water. They can't dwell together. The moment you have fire, it's going to burn up the moisture that's there. If you have water, it's going to do everything it can to put out the fire. They cannot coexist. And so to love God and to love worldly pleasures are actually contradictory with each other. And that's why the more one grows, the other shrinks. The more you love worldly pleasures, the less you're going to love God. because whichever way you want to put it, whichever one's fire or water, it's going to put the other one out. And it's kind of like when you love somebody to the core and you find out that there's somebody who they hate, you're going to hate that person as well. Because how can you love somebody who has a deep-seated hatred for somebody who you love? As King David says in Tehillim, Kidchsiv, as it's written, I hate them with utter hatred. They are enemies to me. Chakreni v'dalavavi. Investigate me and know my heart. So there's two things that King David is saying. On the one hand, he's saying that those who hate God have become my enemies. And then the next verse, he says, investigate me and know my heart. What's the connection between these two things? That David hates whatever and whoever hates God, and investigate my heart. Because the cause of David's great hatred for those who hate God was as a result of his intense love for God. In other words, if you were to investigate his heart, King David's heart, you'll see the great love that exists for God in his heart. And so automatically, because of what's going on in King David's heart, which is love for God, automatically he has an utter hatred for anything that's against God. And based on the level of love to God, that's how intense this hatred to the other side, to anything opposing God will be. So the more you love God, the more you hate anything that hates God. If you only love God a little bit, you'll kind of be uncomfortable with things that hate God, but it's not really going to be an existential threat. But if you really, really, really love God, anything that's against God is going to create feelings of hatred and disgust. And so therefore, the tzaddik gamor, the complete tzaddik, because of his great love for God, as we said, it's a love of literally delightfulness in God. Like, a scoop of godliness. Like we would eat a scoop of ice cream. Godliness is just so delightful for the tzaddik gamor. So he can't like anything else. V'amius bara betachlis, and the disgust in evil is absolute. So that means it's a unlimited level of disgust. I guess there's a difference between hatred and disgust. Hatred, you can hate somebody or something that has sentience or the decision-making power, you can hate them. But a thing, you can't hate the thing, you're just disgusted by it. You just don't want it to exist. Now, why is disgust also based on the level of love that you have for God? Because disgust, repugnance, is the opposite of love, just as hatred is. So the feeling of disgust is the opposite feeling of love, just like hatred is the opposite of love. And therefore, the level of disgust that the tzaddik has for anything that's evil will also be commensurate with the love that he has for godliness. So, in short, what we're trying to say here is that the tzaddik is disgusted by worldly matters, not because of his understanding of the negative side of those enjoyments, meaning that he understands and appreciates that if you're immersed in worldly affairs, it's going to make you more coarse, or he meditates on the fact that really all these worldly pleasures are just like a bucket of excrement or anything like that. But rather, the feelings of disgust come simply from the fact that he loves God. And he loves God so intensely, so automatically anything that's against that will be disgusting. And only when the disgust is born out of this automatic feeling um, that's when it's a true feeling of disgust. Because if he has to meditate and understand and appreciate and meditate over the fact that, oh, all these things are not worth enjoying, it's going to be somewhat of a superficial hatred and disgust towards these things. But when it's coming automatically from love for God, that's when it'll be a true repugnance, a true distancing that he'll have towards these things. So, in short, a tzaddik gamur is somebody who transformed all of his evil into good, and that is by being disgusted with evil in a way that all worldly things are completely disgusting to him. And that feeling of disgust is actually coming as a result of his love for God so intensely. And therefore, by way of automatic contrast, he hates all the klipa and all the opposing forces to godliness, and he's disgusted by any worldly delights which get their energy and vitality from those klippas. And because he loves Hashem with an unlimited love, therefore his hatred to the opposing forces and his disgust with evil is something that's absolutely boundless and absolutely absolute. Because absolute love to God equals absolute hatred and disgust to anything against it. That's the end of today's class, and we hope to see you again next week.